Mr. Abdelmoula, you are the person who crafted the agenda, the program, the sessions at this year's Al Jazeera Forum. What were the foundations to create it like this, and why are we talking about the topics we are talking about?
First of all, thank you for having me and for being here. As you know, Al Jazeera Center for Studies is we focus on the geopolitics of the Middle East, and we are based in the Middle East, so we are very near almost most of the hotspots and following very closely the ongoing events. So it's an opportunity for us to be maybe one of the very few think tanks that can reflect on those events and convey the developments and understanding those developments to the world. So from this perspective, we chose the most interesting developments, the major developments in the region for the last year, let's say, the war on Gaza and the change in Syria. This is the reason why we are focusing on those two developments. First of all, because we can't ignore them. Everyone is following them. Secondly, because most of the regional and international agendas are intertwined and playing into these two events. So if you take Gaza, you have the occupation, you have Israel, you have the United States, you have the Europeans, you have the Arabs. If you take Syria, you will find the Iranians, you will find the Russians, the Americans, the Turks, then the Arabs. So both events are very interesting in terms of geopolitics and in terms of being the area where the regional and international agendas are competing and are conflicting.
What impacts are we already seeing of these transformative dynamics in the Middle East?
I think everyone is talking about transforming the Middle East, or at least those who think they have the upper hand on the global stage think they can change the Middle East and they can shape it the way they want. But from what we understand is the dynamics, the regional dynamics are those who lead change and this transformation in the region. Of course, you can have your grand strategy, you can have your agenda, you might be the might or superpower in the world, but in the end, developments on the ground are those who lead those transformations, and we think that shaping the Middle East or bringing about new developments in the Middle East will initially start from within the region. That's why we focus on what is going on Gaza on the ground. And of course, those who put together the objectives and goals of the war, let's say from the Israeli perspective, when we read into the results, I think the results do not match those goals. Same for Syria, those who supported the regime in Syria. If you read into what happened very recently, this doesn't match those goals and objectives, whether for the Iranians or for the Russians.
Actually, the situation in Syria is a very good example of these very quick to change dynamics in the Middle East. And just last year we were here at the same forum, and I don't think anybody spoke about the possibility of a regime change in Syria, and nevertheless that fast as it happened. However, we have some actors in the Middle East who are now getting more and more visibility and more roles on a global level. We are in one of them at the moment. We're in Qatar right now. What is the role of Qatar in these changing dynamics? We can also mention Al Jazeera here.
Yeah, that's right. I was sitting next to one of our guests. He was telling me, why are you not discussing Libya, for example, or Sudan? You're just focusing on Gaza and the war in Syria. I told him just last year, Syria wasn't on the agenda. We didn't even think of having it as one of the prime points to focus on. Today, it's the agenda, it's the topic of discussion. So we are driven by those developments. We don't create them. We follow them, we understand them, and we try to understand how they interplay. Among the players, of course, is Qatar. Although it's a small country when it comes to the size and the influence, but it's playing, I think, crucial roles in both areas, in Gaza and in Syria. In Gaza, as you know, Qatar is one of the three powers that are trying to mediate and bring this conflict to an end, and they succeeded last November, and they, I think, succeeded also now to bring this ceasefire into effect. Of course, it's fragile. We could go back to the conflict again, but those powers are trying to turn it into real end of the war. It's not just ceasefire. Qatar is playing with a number of powers, of course. It's very well positioned to have channels open with major players, and that gives it very good leverage to have an influence over those crises. In Syria, of course, Qatar also was, I think, the only or one of the very few Arab countries that supported the Syrian revolution since day one until the fall of the Assad regime. And although many regional powers tried to bring Assad in and rehabilitate the regime, Qatar was against this move until the last minute. Now they found themselves very fortunate, and they, I think, will benefit very much of the new Syria, besides the Turks, of course, which are also very influential in the Syrian case.
Mr. Abdelmoula, thank you very much for taking the time to speak to Al Jazeera Balkans.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot.